So tired right now.
All right, hey there, what's up? Hanging out here in the parking lot at Apple, and we just got through the big announcement for the iPhone 5S and the iPhone 5C. So of course everyone's probably wondering what I think of these two new phones. First off, I think it's really interesting that pretty much everything they said on stage, we already heard on the blogs. Like literally everything was spot on, from the gold to the fingerprint to the candy colored cases on the iPhone 5C to the names. So it's kind of crazy because it used to be you went to these events and you were really surprised at what they would announce. There would always be that one more thing, and there'd always be those little features that you didn't really know about that you hear about, and it's just awesome. You sit there and you go, wow, that's really cool. That's what makes Apple Apple. So I think the difference this time is that we were sitting through and we were sort of check marking everything that we heard online in our heads when we heard it on stage. Now that doesn't take away from the fact that these are both phenomenal products that they launched. So I know the iPhone 5S, let's talk about that one first. It's basically a souped up version of the iPhone 5, which they're no longer gonna make. They're gonna, discontinue that, and now it's the iPhone 5S, which is incremental. I mean, the camera's better. The camera on this thing looks phenomenal. And what Apple's trying to do is basically dummy-proof our cameras, make them so smart that no matter what, you can still take a good picture with your camera, even if you don't know how to use a camera. I tried out the burst mode on that thing. It's phenomenal. You just hold down your finger on the shutter and it just takes pictures so fast, and then the device actually will choose which picture it thinks is the best. Now, I've used the burst mode on the Samsung Galaxy S4, and yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but first off, you gotta choose to be in burst mode, and second, it takes a lot longer after you take the pictures to sort of process them. So Apple definitely killed it in these areas. Now, I know everyone's gonna say, oh, Apple didn't really do anything that's so spectacular, but whenever Apple does something, they do it really well. Let's talk about the fingerprint scanner on the phone. So that was a big thing. They have it, they call it Touch In, or what is it called, Touch It?
Touch ID.
Touch ID. So it's called Touch ID. Apple likes to come up with these names that I guess are supposed to be memorable, not to me. You touch your finger on this little home button, and next thing you know, your phone unlocks. That is a brilliant feature. The idea of the fingerprint scanner, you used to have to like run your finger down the phone. That never really worked out. Apple has done it right. Again, it's simple, it's easy, it's gonna work. And on stage, they said that only like 50% of people actually secure their phones with this. I mean, if it's not gonna be 100%, I don't know what's gonna make it 100%, because every single kid, when they see their parents or they're hanging out with their parents, they're gonna go, Mom, Dad, you're gonna lock your phone with your thumbprint? I'll show you how. And next thing you know, they can do that. You can buy apps with it, which is really cool. I also imagine that one day, and this isn't a feature just yet, but they're probably gonna have different profiles on your phone where you can actually use your finger to unlock it and it'll open up one profile on the phone. Use your kid's finger to unlock it and open up another profile on the phone. So this just opens up a lot of possibilities with this fingerprint scanner. Otherwise, the phone looks great. I mean, it looks just like the iPhone 5, except it's a newer version. So it's nothing exciting in that aspect, but it's a beautiful looking phone. Let's talk about the 5C. They didn't really say what C stands for, but we're saying cheaper. I really don't think this is a cheap phone. $100 on contract, you still gotta sign a 2-year contract. That doesn't mean the phone is cheap. Yes, it's cheaper than the iPhone 5S, which is $200, but that doesn't mean it's a cheap phone. It's 16 gigs for $100. I would have liked to see this phone 2 different ways. Free, and I would have liked to see it, if it's not free with a contract, I would have liked to see it off contract, but for like $300, $250, because unlocked. So that means you can just pop in a SIM card, next thing you know, you're using this phone. And I'm telling you, I know Apple's gonna sell a ton of these phones as it is, but the idea that you can just buy an unlocked phone from Apple for $300 that has slightly lesser specs than the main phone, and just that just kills it. That would be so phenomenal if that was the case. That's not the case.
Hey, we're gonna be squeezing it.
But I do think, that's okay. But I do think that it's still gonna be a phenomenal phone, and a lot of people are gonna buy that phone, especially all over the world, and kids especially are gonna love that phone for sure. I'm getting the wrap-up signal from my producer. Even though this is on the web, it doesn't matter how long I go. Let me see what else I want to talk about real quick. I talked about the iPhone 5S, I talked about the 5C. The specs on the 5C obviously aren't that great. Oh, let me just talk about one thing that I think is really kind of funny about Apple. They make these phones that they say are $99, $199, but then of course you throw in the accessories. So the cases on these phones are like $40, $30. You're talking like a third of the price of the phone for a case. Now, of course, the case adds a lot to it, and there's a million other third-party cases you can get out there, but I just think it's kind of funny. Like, realistically, when you walk out of the Apple store, 9 times out of 10, a lot of people are gonna buy that case to go with it, and it adds a substantial price to that phone as well. So overall, like I said, nothing that wowed us. That doesn't really mean much. Apple is still going to sell a ton of these devices. It's still going to be a very popular phone, but I will say my only issue with the iPhone is this. People always ask me, do you like the iPhone better? Do you like the Android operating system better? I love what you can do with Android from a customization level. So something like an iFi card. You take a picture in your camera, your iFi card is immediately connected to your phone, whether you are in the app or not, and it just sort of sends the pictures there. Whereas everything on Apple is sort of sandboxed, where if you're running an app, fine, you can do whatever you want inside that app, but there's no sort of cross-app talk, nor is there any replacement of the original apps. You know, if you want to use a different mail program, you can, but guess what? None of the links you open in that program are going to go to that new program. They're going to, you know, go to your original mailbox. And I think that's a little frustrating. You know, Safari, you can't replace the original browser. So I understand why Apple does all that stuff, but that's the only thing that kind of frustrates me about the phones. Otherwise, look, they're beautiful devices. Apple kills it. And the other thing, one more thing, is that a lot of times you have these things that come out that don't go mass. So like if Apple comes out with this fingerprint scanner, no matter what, they're going to implement that. If they allow that technology to be used in other apps, things like that, that technology is almost standard just by the mere fact that Apple has come out with it. Whereas on Android, you can have a lot of these little weird features that people come out with, like Samsung's wallet. But is it really going to be used by all those people? Probably not, because it's not Apple behind it. So whenever Apple does something, adds a new feature, gives you new functionality, it's sort of like a done deal. Like iMessage didn't take more than a day for that to become pretty much a standard in messaging on the iOS platform, not only because they forced you into it, sort of, but also because every phone is using it. Whereas if you look at Android and the rest of the messaging platforms, there's 500 different apps you can possibly use to message with your friends, everything from WhatsApp to Snapchat to Message Me or whatever, Kik. So the thing about the standards I think is also really interesting about iOS is they come out with it and everyone gets to use it all at once. Anyway, that's it from me here at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California. It was a fun morning, always an exciting day no matter when Apple has an event. And if you want to see more stuff that I took up here, follow me on Twitter at Rich DeMuro. Go to richdemuro.com, richontech.tv, wherever you want to go, you can find me. All right, see you later.
Look at this.